All right, guys, welcome back to the channel here. Today I want to talk to you about arrow straightness and why it's not as important as what guys think it is. So here I've got a RIP TKO. This is their sport model. This is rated as a 6,000 straightness in the arrow shaft itself. If you notice here, when I put it on the spinner, you're going to see a little bit of wobble on each end of the shaft here. And you know, for me, during the off season, I actually like to shoot my sports. They're a little bit less expensive, so if I lose or break a couple, not a big deal. And for guys that have a little bit shorter draw length, you can kind of trim off each end of the shaft. So if you get a 6,000 straightness shaft like this, you can trim it down, make it a little bit straighter. But what I typically recommend for my customers is in the off season, you're not hunting, you're just out practicing and shooting. Shoot the sports, guys. It's going to save you some money. They're easy to replace. But when you get close to hunting season, now we're talking broadhead flight. This is where, to me, straightness tolerances matter more, is when I start putting a broadhead on the front of my arrow. So I got a RIP TKO Elite here. When I spin this, you're not going to see hardly any wobble in this shaft whatsoever. It's very, very straight. That is going to help quite a bit with broadhead flight. So the analogy I like to use all the time, imagine you're in a truck, you're going 25 miles an hour down the road. If your tire's out of balance, you don't feel it. But as soon as you get on the freeway, you start doing 75. Now you can feel the front end start to wobble. The tires are out of balance. So if I'm just shooting for practice, I'm shooting just field tips, the straightness tolerance is not that important. However, when you switch over to broadheads, I highly, highly recommend getting to the Elite tolerance shafts. But one of the most important things, and this is very overlooked in the sport of archery, what's more important for the arrow's accuracy is what they call dynamic spine. And dynamic spine is literally how the arrow flexes and bends coming out of the bow. So, for example, this is a RIP TKO Elite 400 spine. So the 400 is a little bit softer, weaker arrow. It's going to flex and bend a little bit more, but it's a very, very straight shaft. But if I was to take a 400 and a 300 spine shaft and shoot them both side by side, they're both going to react quite a bit different dynamically out of the bow, which means the arrow is going to flex and bend completely different. That matters more for accuracy than straightness does. So when you guys are choosing the right arrow setups for your bow, you know, when I was first in the sport, I couldn't tell you the difference from a 300 to a 340 to a 400. I didn't know the difference back then. So I was actually shooting my very first season with some 340s and some 400s and couldn't figure out why I couldn't group. I thought it was me. So number one, get the right spine. Two, buy a good reputable arrow brand, a good company that are going through and they're checking these things for these arrows, guys. Unless you have a spine indicator, you're not going to really see the difference there. But get the right spine for hunting. Plan on shooting at least a 3,000 straightness shaft or better. I usually recommend going all the way up to a 1, but for practice with the less expensive stuff. Practice some 6,000 arrows. I promise you, for most guys, if you went out and shot a Elite, which is a 1,000th, and a Sport, which is a 6,000th, side by side with a practice tip, you're probably not going to ever shoot or notice the difference between those two. So thanks for tuning in. Comment below what arrow setup you're running. If you've noticed a difference in the straightness tolerance of your arrows, there's some other factors there with vein combos and stuff you can kind of work out with those. But comment below. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to get wild.